Hello. What is the main cause of relationship breakups? Firstly, we have been fed a fairy tale, one that there's a Prince Charming, he's going to be the one, or a Princess Charming, and she's going to be the one, and love will conquer all obstacles. And when we partner up, when we get married, when we live together, when we get that commitment to a relationship, the love will conquer all and we can sail off happily ever after into the sunset, and whatever challenges come up, we'll be able to sort them. Unfortunately, anyone who's been through a relationship breakup from that situation, anyone who's been divorced, and even people who are still in a happy relationship will know that that isn't the truth. That it takes a lot of work, a lot of understanding, a lot of patience, a lot of self-knowledge and acceptance of other people to keep that relationship going. And even then, there can still be problems that arise where people find that they change and they want to go in different directions. So the first thing is to say that the fairy tale isn't necessarily something that is going to work out for everybody, and life is a lot more complicated than that. Or it can seem a lot more complicated, but actually I want to break it down to make it relatively simple. Often when people are asked, well, what's the reason for a breakup? What's the, what happened? You'll get reasons like they lied, they cheated, there was substance abuse going on, or some sort of addictive behaviour, gambling or something else, or violence, domestic abuse. There could be just being taken for granted or not feeling heard or listened to. All of those things can be the external reasons given for the relationship breakup. What I'd like to do is just dig that little bit deeper underneath and just see if we can find a common thread somewhere. Sometimes that behaviour can be because of one of two reasons. One, because life is just too much. There's been pain in the past where behaviour patterns have developed as a result of that, and there hasn't been movement from that. So addictive behaviour or controlling behaviour or whatever is ways of trying to minimise and numb the pain. And that's not to condone that behaviour, but to maybe start to understand where that person is coming from. Or it might be that they feel that life isn't enough, that their life isn't going anywhere, or they feel they're stuck or stagnant, or just that unsettled feeling that there must be more to life than what is happening at the moment. Now, in that situation, you've got an opportunity to do one of two things. You can either look to the external again to see how that gap can be filled, that unsettled feeling, and that could mean going straight into another relationship, or sometimes people have shopping patterns to get them to make them happy, and then, or moving house, or getting more material possessions. That's really what we're saying, which give pleasure in the immediacy, but then that unsettled feeling comes in again quite quickly. It could be, as I say, it could be another relationship, it could be material possessions, it could be new job or adventures or whatever. And there is appropriate situations where that is a valid choice, but it depends why we make those choices. If we're making that choice from wanting that gap to be filled, for the external to satisfy, then we're going to repeat patterns. And if it is another person, then, for example, we're likely to choose the same person, but just in a different body or on different clothes. But if it comes from a position of strength, of saying, I would like to, I'm not happy in my job, and my creativity or my skills, my qualities aren't being fully used, I'd like to move on, maybe to retrain or something like that. That's completely different, because we're looking at who we are, what we want to do, and expressing ourselves that way. But that's often the reason for things like what they're called a midlife crisis, that unsettled feeling that there's a gap and that the relationship perhaps isn't filling that gap, and so other avenues are explored rather than seeing what we can do for ourselves. Other unsettled feelings can mean that we blame the other. If we're going to the external, we can say, well, we're blaming the other person because they're not giving us what we feel we need. Or it may be a relationship where there was the thought that once you're together, then things would change in one way or another. That person might change, they might stop doing this if they're really happy or whatever. Some sort of rescuing behaviour going on. And again, if anybody's ever been in that situation, they'll know that that doesn't work either. Where I'm heading to here is to show that the most important thing that is going to make or break a relationship is going to be what is happening inside us, what we feel about ourselves, our self-respect, our self-worth, our self-value. What we're looking for in a relationship from that place is acceptance, where there's give and take, where somebody doesn't feel threatened if somebody has a different point of view or opinion, versus controlling behaviour, where somebody feels threatened if somebody else doesn't agree with them or do what they think they should be doing. We're looking for a relationship where there's open and honest communication, where we're listened to, rather than not being heard or expecting the other person to be mind readers and to know what it is that we want without us fully expressing it. So I suppose what we're saying is, well, we're looking for flexibility within the relationship, rather than somebody who's unwilling to change, look at another point of view, take a different direction, grow within themselves or whatever. Damaging behaviour can come from having rigid expectations, because again, it's about not knowing ourselves and feeling threatened, holding grudges, being disappointed, rather than an open sharing relationship with flexibility and companionship. When the internal world within each person hasn't been developed and explored and understood, where there's these negative behavior patterns happening, it limits the relationship, it limits the freedom for people to grow and be who they want to be, because being in a relationship is not just about being a couple, but it's also having that freedom to be yourself as well. So looking at the internal life, our private life, if you like, our sense of self, who we are, who we feel about, how we feel about ourselves when we're alone, as well as when we're with other people, that is so important. And when that is not fully, not even fully developed, but it isn't explored and understood, then that is a main cause of relationship breakups.